My dad made a YouTube video about my highlights.
Becoming a Springbok is obviously a dream for many guys, and not many achieve that.
Being able to get that cap in that sold-out stadium in Bloemfontein was really an amazing moment.
How do you handle that intensity?
Stress and the nerves is with preparation. If your preparation is so on point and you've done your work throughout the week, you know your detail, then, it all comes sort of naturally.
What's that one piece of advice that you would share with the young guys?
Don't be afraid to.
Okay, so Ruan, your rise in rugby has been impressive. For those that are new to your journey, how would you describe the last couple of months after becoming a Springbok?
Yeah, I think it's been an amazing couple of months. Honestly, it came unexpectedly when I got the call to go join the Springboks in Bloemfontein. But yeah, just a massive privilege and an honor to play for the Springboks. So at the moment, I just have the one cap. So for now, it's just the goal on working towards getting into that squad and staying there. I think that's the massive thing you have to work towards. And yeah, so just at the moment, just working hard on my game and trying to get back to being in that squad.
And tell us a bit more about your early beginnings. What was your first memory of playing rugby, and what made you fall in love with the game?
Yeah, so my dad used to coach high school rugby at Sutherland High School. So when I was a young kid, probably 4 or 5, I would join their practices and play with all the kids, touch rugby and just kick around the ball on those fields. That was probably where I have most of my early rugby memories. Yeah, that was just a really special time, bonding time with my father and developing those early skills. So I think probably that when I was like 4 or 5 years old, training with the high school kids. Yeah.
Okay, looking back at that early days, what was the piece of advice you received that you think still sticks with you today?
Probably just to express yourself. My dad always told me just show the world what you can do. So that's the main thing for us as rugby players. The way you earn your money and the way you become successful is by expressing yourself and showing the people what makes you you. You're there for a reason. You have the talent, you put in the hard work. So when you get onto the field, it's just about expressing yourself.
Okay, and the rise to obviously joining the Lions is a massive, big milestone in your career. So, what was the journey for you to get to that point where you obviously loved rugby as a young boy? And how did you arrive at the Lions? How did you get your first cap? Just give us a bit of a breakdown of how you got to that point.
Yeah, so my story is a bit different. I'd say the usual guy that gets a contract, who plays Grand Como, then plays Cravenweek, gets a contract. By the time I was end of grade 11, no one really knew about me. I was still in Sutherland, which is a small small rugby school, English school in Centurion. So by that time I was completely under the radar. No one knew about me. And my dad made a YouTube video about my highlights because COVID just hit. So I wasn't going to get any contracts through Cravenweek or anything like that. So sort of made a highlights video, just a Hail Mary to throw it out there. And someone from Paul Boys actually saw that video. So then I got the opportunity to go to Paul Boys for matric as a nobody basically, and try and prove myself in that year to play first team and maybe get a contract. Yeah, and from that worked really hard, got into the first team, and we played I think 5 or 6 games. I was lucky enough to play good in those games. Yeah, so then in about June or July the Lions signed me. And in my matric year, I think it was in September, I flew up to Johannesburg and played a few under 20 games for the Lions, which helped a lot. So I sort of did school for those few weeks online, wrote a few exams up here, and then I went back to Paul Boys again. So that under 20 campaign, which I was in matric, that helped me a lot. And then the following year, the year out of matric, 14 days actually into the new year, I made my Currie Cup debut. And then 14 days after that, I made my URC debut. And yeah, everything just kind of fell in line for me. There was lots of injuries in my positions that gave me a chance. So then I got the opportunity and I took the opportunity. And yeah, so I played URC at 19, that first month out of matric. Yeah, just a massive blessing. Yeah, that was just God's will blessed upon my life. So 2 URC seasons. Then I got the call last month or in July from the Springboks. I got my first cap. And now we're in the Currie Cup campaign preparing for this year's URC.
That's great. And then, obviously you touched on obviously you were in a small school. How big was the move for you to move from a smaller school to obviously to a big school. I mean, what would your advice be for kids that's in similar situations? Because I know that's something that we obviously quite passionate about at Octafield, and one of the things that we're working on is to help kids in smaller towns and that don't always get the opportunities of kids in big schools. So that's why we're launching our scouting program and platform. I mean, how big of an effect do you think it was moving from a smaller town school to a big school?
It's a big change, definitely, but I think if you have the right mindset going into it, I sort of had a mindset of, okay, I'm all in, there's no going back. This is what I've decided to do. I'm going to follow through with it. And yeah, that's 6 months before the time. It's probably the hardest I've ever trained in my life. I'm trying to get ready for that level. But yeah, a lot of the time you have a picture in your head about these big schools that they are so much better than you, and everybody there is sort of untouchable when you're in that smaller environment, but it's not really the case. If you have the talent and you have that ability and the work ethic, you can do it. I mean, it's possible. It happened with me. No one gave me a chance. I went there, I started in the third team, and I worked my way up all the way to the first team. And yeah.
And I mean, if you look at the Lions and the team culture and values, I mean, how does that influence the way you play and you approach the game? I mean, there's obviously a lot of high pressure games in the URC. I mean, how do you handle that intensity at that young age? I mean, when I was 19, I was still playing at Sharks under 19 and under 21. So we back in the days, we didn't get that call ups into this major competition so early in our career. So I mean, how do you handle that as a young boy coming from a small school, had to work yourself up? I mean, how do you handle that from your side?
Yeah, I really enjoy that pressure. I think the games I play best is the games with the most pressure and at the biggest stage. But yeah, I think the way you deal with the stress and the nerves is with preparation. If your preparation is so on point and you've done your work throughout the week, you know your detail, then it all comes sort of naturally. So if you've put in the work, you know your stuff, you've done your homework, then sort of settles those nerves. But yeah, I enjoy that aspect of the URC.
Okay, I mean, becoming a Springbok is obviously a dream for many guys, and not many achieve that. I mean, what does that goal mean to you personally? I know your dad passed away a while back, and I know it was something that you promised him. So, I mean, what does that mean for you? And I mean, what's your aspirations for the future in becoming a more capped player?
Yeah, it was a dream for me as well since I was a little boy. But yeah, you never really think you'll get there. It's a thing of a dream, but it feels out of touch. And to actually achieve that and get to that level it was an amazing moment for me, an emotional moment. Yeah, so being able to get that cap in sold-out stadium in Bloemfontein was really an amazing moment, and that sort of just drives the hunger to, as I said previously, just to stay there, to get back into that system, and just being able to express yourself and playing for the country. I think that's the highest privilege you can have as a rugby player, is to play for your country.
Yeah, and I mean, just in terms of personal growth and resilience, I mean, obviously that's something that you've shown you have a lot in you, overcoming a lot of different challenges so early in your career, and obviously the passing of your dad was probably the biggest one. But I mean, what was the biggest challenge off the field, and I mean, how did you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, so the passing of my dad that happened about a year and a half ago. That was emotionally the toll it took on my family, and on me personally it was massive, because he was my biggest supporter. Especially in rugby, I would call him before every game, after every game, and so he was a big part of my journey to that point. So losing him took a lot of effort and a lot of time to deal with. I'm still dealing with it, but so that, on the emotional aspect of it, that has been the toughest challenge. And then I would say probably back in school, when I was in the small schools, and you would feel like, the Grand Como scouts and coaches and the Cravenwick scouts and coaches weren't backing you because you're coming from a smaller school and you're not playing against the likes of Office and Garsfontein and that. So yeah, for me, being in the Bulls youth system and feeling like you're not getting quite that backing from the coaches, it was a challenge, but it also put that drive in me. So when I went over to Boise, you have that thing of, okay, you didn't back me, I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah.
So that was a big driving factor as well.
Okay, and I mean, for young players looking up to you, what's that one piece of advice that you would share with the young guys?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to show what you can do. A lot of times in schools, it's the kids or the coaches are so focused on the structure and the game plan, and that's all good. But for you as a schoolboy, you have to be able to express yourself. You shouldn't be scared to try things and to do the things that makes you you. Because at the end of the day, you have to show why you are special and why you are not just in a game plan. You have to show that X factor. I think so. If I can have one piece of advice to schoolboys around the world is don't be afraid to express yourself.
Okay, great. And then, I mean, looking back at your journey so far, I mean, what are you excited about for the future, especially with the URC coming up? You guys are obviously still busy with the Currie Cup at the moment. So how does your season look for the rest of the year when you've obviously played a lot of games in the Currie Cup? And then obviously the URC is quite a long season that's awaiting, and then obviously you've got the Challenge Cup and all of those European competitions. So how do you prepare yourself for that this year?
Yeah, so for me I asked to play a bit of Currie Cup so that I could get my form, get a bit of game time, get form in games. So yeah, now I'm a bit more towards the URC preseason and focusing on the URC games coming up. And I think for us, it's quite an exciting time at the Lions. We have a lot of young guys coming through. We finished the season off well last season. So we're putting a big emphasis on that as a union to move forward and to have a successful season, which I think we will.
Okay. But I mean, how's the team culture going? I mean, now obviously the Lions have done really well the last season or so, kind of rebuilding. So, I mean, where are you guys currently? What's your kind of goals for this season?
Yeah, the culture is very good. There's a good vibe. Yeah, not a lot of toxicity or negativity around the union. So I think we're in a good place altogether. Yeah, I think the team culture, because it's also a lot of young guys, we all have a lot to prove. There's a lot of guys that has aspirations to get into the Springboks, and we know that the only way you get there is if you win. So for us, as a group of young guys, we have to start winning. And yeah, but it's really exciting. I think we're in a good place.
Okay, and any of the young guys that you've seen the last couple of games in the Currie Cup that's put up their hand that you think that will have a breakthrough season at this year's URC?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think a lot of the under-21s, especially, who made their step up into the Currie Cup sort of as their first senior season. So guys like Isha Kotze, the Lucid, Leighton Orme, the Scrummy, Sam Francis, the Fly-Off, Bronson, those guys, they've really put up their hands and shown, they belong here and they can be here. And I think that most of those guys will get their chance in URC as well next season. So yeah, it's up to them to put up their hand and show the coaches and show the world what they can do.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, man. And then a last question. I mean, so what's something of being a professional rugby player that most people wouldn't expect or know about you?
I would say I'm a huge Liverpool fan. So probably that, and I'm a big football fan. I played football as well when I was in Sutherland. I enjoy football a lot. Play FIFA. I had every FIFA since FIFA 14. So yeah, that's probably things someone or the people don't know about me.
Okay, great.